Cold Case is one of those custom maps. Maps that try to be different and do something other maps wouldn't do, breaking the status quo. In most cases, doing this backfires horribly and the map suffers for it. Cold Case is no different. Fuck! While not the worst map I've ever played, it still is far from being remotely good, but it's not all bad. This campaign also gets a few things right. Not nearly enough to overshadow all the problems, but there are some things I like about this map. And before you say anything, I am aware of how old this campaign is. This map was developed for Left 4 Dead 1, so it's really old. Heck, it's even got its own website. But I don't think this is a map that just aged poorly.
No.
After playing the original Left 4 Dead 1 version of this campaign, let me say, I really doubt this was seen as a good map back then. The Left 4 Dead 1 version of this campaign is absolutely horrendous. The biggest reason is because this map fundamentally changes the gameplay of Left 4 Dead 1 for the worse. First of all, the M16 pistol and Uzi now have recoil and jitters your screen a bit while shooting. Oddly enough, shotguns and the hunting rifle are not affected by this. So using the auto shotgun is basically mandatory, but I was gonna use that anyway because it already is the best gun in the game. Great job, map creator. Later on in the campaign, you get an upgrade that basically removes the recoil and jittering. Okay, so clearly the map creator wanted to have some kind of upgrade system as you go through the campaign. But if you have to nerf something in order to make that happen, it's so not worth it. Because, like I said before, nobody wants to play a map that alters the gameplay of Left 4 Dead. Shoving has been gutted. Not only is it slower, but you also can't shoot or reload your weapon for a second after shoving. Medkits don't heal as much and take a second longer than normal to finish the animation. Pills grant less health? Man, the map creator just loves nerfing your character. I just don't understand. All of these changes in gameplay alone are what makes this campaign bad. Screw level design, story, screw everything. Nothing matters anymore because the map is just not fun to play. Even if there are upgrades to everything I just listed, it still doesn't matter. Just why? Why do any of this? And on top of all of that, you've got high ping issues, and the map can crash quite often, though admittedly this is more of a Left 4 Dead 1 issue rather than the map itself. Look, the Left 4 Dead 1 version is just not good. Even for its age, I don't think it's good, because there were way better maps that came out in 2009. Thankfully, the Left 4 Dead 2 version does not have any of these problems. Yeah, there are some bugs here and there, but I'll gladly take that over pointless downgraded gameplay. With that being said, Cold Case is still a bad map. The Left 4 Dead 2 port fixed so many issues, but we're just getting started. I haven't even talked about the map yet. And the Left 4 Dead 2 version did not fix the map itself. The map spawns you in a black void where you can thankfully skip the intro because it is 5 minutes long. Basically, a narrator talks about a deadly virus that has spread throughout the whole world in 2 days. Governments created quarantine zones and ordered curfews in response.
It became a capital offense to be outside your home.
Capital offense to be outside your home? And then we cut to the survivors screaming as they are in the middle of a plane about to crash. It happens so suddenly, it's almost like a jump scare. After somehow surviving the plane crash, the survivors swim to a prison and go up an elevator. I just find it amusing that the survivors are afraid of the infected, and yet Bill, who is an old man, can just cut through them with the fire axe like they are nothing. You can actually go up the elevator without waiting for the bots because the map actually has a ladder that they could use to follow you. That's nice for solo players such as myself. Also, before you go up the elevator, the map advises you to look around for first aid kits, which is pointless. Why not just spawn with them like every other map? There are grenades, magnums, and a melee weapon you can find in this area. It would be fine if these were the items that are missable, not first aid kits. Every single map Valve has ever released has the first aid kits right in front of you for a reason. Though people still sometimes forget to pick up first aid even though it is right in front of them. After going Going up the elevator, you enter the prison and oh, this is just Nova Prospect. What is up with these custom maps and Nova Prospect? In fact, the section we were just in before was taken straight from the beginning of Half-Life 2. This room is Dr. Kleiner's lab. Following the arrows leads you into this room with an audio recording of this guy named Jay.
I was able to hold off most of the infected with my fists.
Who does this guy think he is? Saxton Hale? After the recording, another person on the radio urges you to pick up. This is the guy whose voice you'll be hearing for the whole campaign, so you better get used to him. I don't think he ever explicitly says his name, but apparently it's Ryan. Ryan tells you to head to the safe room by opening the cell gate. However, once you do, this happens. Yep, a cutscene. And you know what that means? Zombies can deal damage to you during the cutscene. This is a problem throughout the whole campaign, and there'll be egregious cutscenes that can literally end your run. Anyway, once you go through the cell gate, Ryan tells you to head to the underground treatment plant where there is another safe room. After entering the courtyard, you've got to interact with this generator to open the gate. But once you do, a 30-second cutscene plays. That is more than enough time for a common infected to kill everybody, so you'd better make sure that the coast is clear before you this thing. This cutscene is just so unnecessary too. You don't need to show me what's ahead of me. After the gate opens, the rest of the level is an infinite horde. This section is the worst part of this whole chapter because at one point the map forces you to split up. I don't hate that idea, but the problem here is that there is currently an infinite horde. The only reason why the bots lived is because I have Left 4 Bots 2 installed, but just imagine if I didn't. The bots would just die on their own and there's just nothing I could do about it. That's not fair. And the way you reunite is kind of weird. You think it would be at this gate because this gate must be opened to beat the level, but only the survivors who ended up on the right side go to this gate. If you end up on the left side, you either wait until your teammates open the gate, which leads them to this door, which can take a long time, or you have the option to just drop down to their side and reunite early. It's just so weird. I think it'd flow a lot better if everyone just reunited here and opened the way forward together. Once the survivors reunite, you enter the safe room, ending the chapter. To be honest, even though that ending section is bullshit, Chapter 1 is probably the best in the whole campaign. I feel like exploration was rewarded heavily. You start the chapter without a weapon, but you can find guns when you go off the beaten path. There is also a secret key you can get by going all the way to this corner in the courtyard. If you ended up on the left side, this door will be open, which has grenades and a hunting rifle. There are hidden laser sights right here if you jump across, which is very nice. If there is one thing this map gets right, it's exploration. The chapter is also a decent length, not too long or too short. Despite the problems, I wouldn't say this chapter is bad, just okay. Immediately after opening the safe house door, a cutscene plays with Ryan telling you what you'll encounter in the level. My question is, why is this cutscene necessary? Just like that generator cutscene in chapter 1, the map just shows you where you're gonna go when it really doesn't have to. That's like if whenever you open the safe house door in any of the campaigns, the game does this first. Pointless, isn't it? After leaving the safe house, you have to go into this building to get your medkits. Again, I would much prefer if you spawned with the medkits and instead had other items in this area. Plus, you spawn with an SMG and ammo, but not first aid. What gives? Well, there is one first aid kit that can be found over here in this corner, so I guess that's something. The goal right now is to head through the forest and reach the city so that the survivors can meet Ryan and evacuate. But in order to do that, you have to kill about 500 zombies and endure one of the longest chapters. Now this next part confuses me. We can obviously see that this is where we're supposed to go, but first we have to enter this military outpost, hit this switch, and start a long panic event. But it just makes no sense on why this is here. What are we accomplishing by hitting this button? We're not removing an obstacle that is in our way, so what's the point? Apparently, this switch is used to lure zombies away from any survivors that are attempting to make it to the city. Otherwise, flipping the switch is suicide.
Huh?
You're telling me now that the survivors are willingly summoning a horde for the sake of other people? Wow, that's some serious character development. Just makes no sense.
Right now.
The goal is to meet up with Ryan in the city, not purposely summon hordes to fight. Then the survivor has the goal to say this.
I guess I will be happy to add a few hundred zombies to my tally by the end of it.
What? In the first chapter, they are scared of the zombies, saying stuff like,
"Is there any place safe from these monsters?"
What, did they just gain huge confidence after overhearing Jay talking about fighting the infected with his
Fists.
I'm probably making too big of a deal with this, but I just had to say something. As for the panic event itself, it's pretty bad and weirdly designed. You're supposed to stay in the middle and use the mounted gun, but there is barely enough space and zombies seem to randomly blow up from something. Landmines, I guess, but there is no sound effect when it happens. The map gives you a lot of gas cans, so you're supposed to use them, but again, there is so little space between you and the zombies. All in all, this whole panic event is completely unnecessary. It should have been cut from the map and instead leave this whole area completely optional, or redesign the panic event and make it make sense. After that painful experience, you go through the forest until you reach the overgrown facility. This part of the map is not as bad as that military outpost, but there are still a lot of issues. First of all, half of this area is straight up copy and pasted from Mercy Hospital. I mean, come on, man. Other custom maps do this all the time, so I guess I don't mind it too much. I do hate that this part of the level is so confusing to navigate. You're supposed to find an electrical box to activate another switch to turn on the power, but finding it is just not fun. It's also not visually appealing either. You're just looking at barf the entire time, but I guess that has more to do with this map's age. After the power is turned on, you have to take this elevator up to the top floor to move on. You can go without the bots, just like chapter 1, but the map creator made sure to add a pathway that the bots can use so that no one is getting left behind. Once again, exploring is rewarded, not only with items, but also upgrades. In the Left 4 Dead 1 version, I'm assuming that finding this table will upgrade your first aid kits and pills back to what they originally were. I think it's really dumb that this exists, but I guess it's better than nothing. If there had to be an upgrade station here, just make it so that it already buffs the survivors as they are. Like, I don't know, a max health buff or damage reduction against a certain type. Anything that didn't have to be taken away just to be given back. After leaving the overgrown facility, you enter the forest again and pretty much run for 5 minutes until you reach the safe house. Along the way, you can enter this building for supplies and another upgrade if you're playing the Left 4 Dead 1 version. This one completely negates the weapon recoil and screen shake on the Uzi and assault rifle. I don't need to say anything more on this, it's dumb enough already. But I guess it's nice that this whole section is optional. Almost like that military outpost should have been optional. At the end of the level, you can find a radio and find out what exactly happened to Jay, the guy in chapter 1 who was talking about fighting the infected with his fists.
Relax. I know where I'm going.
We've never been here before.
Shut up. The safe house is right ahead.
Oh! Tank!
God damn it.
Well, I guess he died. Chapter 2 is also an okay chapter, to be honest, but it's definitely worse than chapter 1. It has the same problems and strengths of the first chapter. I think this one was a little too long though. And with how long the chapter is, if you died near the end, man, that must suck. Especially since you have to go through the same cutscenes again. It gets old quick. But this chapter compared to the next one may as well be a masterpiece because holy moly, chapter 3 has gotta be one of the worst levels I've ever played. Not as bad as By Mountain, but nothing is as bad as By Mountain, so that doesn't really mean much. So we finally make it to the city, but we're too late. The military has already blocked off the streets, so now the survivors have to make a detour to make it to the safe house. Honestly, the survivors were probably too late because they made the idiotic decision to fight a whole horde for no reason. Oh, and look, we're doing the same thing again with the first aid kits being outside the safe house. To be fair, it's not as big of an issue since the first aid kits are hard to miss, but still, what if somebody was black and white and somehow died before reaching the first aid kits? It's a rare possibility, but it can happen. Going through the level so far isn't that bad. Just your standard Left 4 Dead 2 gameplay with nothing to really complain about. After dropping down into this flooded area, we have to go through this gate. Once everyone gets close enough, the worst part of the entire campaign happens. 2 tanks spawn, and you are forced to fight them while being slowed down by water. Do I even need to say anything? This is wrong on so many levels. First of all, if you're playing Expert solo, this is where your run ends. A tank on Expert has 8,000 HP, which means you have to deal 16,000 damage to tanks that can't even be lit on fire. Doing that with bots is close to impossible. The tanks will outrun you because of the water and kill the bots in a split second before they turn on you and finish you off. The way this section is designed gives you nothing to work with. No place to escape, no adrenaline shots, no nothing. However, in the Left 4 Dead 1 version, the water doesn't slow you down, so it is much more bearable in that game. But it's still such bull nonetheless, because you still have to deal an insane amount of damage without anything to help you. Even if you could light them on fire, the increased movement speed the tanks get will definitely kill you, and that's a Left 4 Dead 1 thing. I think the worst part is that this is a map that is trying to be an actual custom map. It's not a troll map, but this section and the rest of this chapter really puts that to question. So how do you get past this part? Easy. Install admin system and do this. I'm serious. That is how you should deal with this section. If the map is being completely and utterly unfair, it is justified to cheat. But if you're mentally ill, such as myself, and want to beat this section legit, well, you just have to get lucky. I was fortunate enough that the AI was able to dish out a lot of damage. I was also extremely lucky to find an AK-47 and laser sights along with it. An AK with lasers is the best weapon in the game to kill tanks. And even with that, 2 of the bots still died. Another tip I can give you is to throw a Molotov directly at where the tanks spawn, so that you get a little extra damage before they drop down into the water and put themselves out. I'm done talking about this part. It makes me sick. Let's move on. After entering the building, we lose contact with Ryan, and a new voice emerges.
Who dares enter my domain?
He sounds like a demon who apparently calls the witches his sisters.
What?
I guess the infection fucks with us in all different ways.
The worst is over. The map never gets as bad as that part with the tanks, but the next section is the second worst part in the whole campaign. It's basically a puzzle room where you have to wander around, solve riddles, and avoid death. The Resident Evil inspiration is really felt in this part. Heck, there is even a cutscene that is an exact replication of opening doors in the older Resident Evil games. I may as well have been playing an RE game because at this point in the chapter all of the bots died, and since I'm playing on realism, they're not coming back. Entering this room locks you in and forces you to complete a puzzle to proceed. This part sucks because you can just die instantly to this witch if you aren't careful. If I was playing Resident Evil, I would just be able to load my save file and return to this part to try again. It would take 2 minutes at most. But no, we're playing Left 4 Dead 2, where dying sends you back to the safe house, which means you have to get through that part with the tanks again. It is so easy to die during this part, especially if it's your first time playing. You can also pick up the shotgun, but if you never picked up the part necessary, you just straight up die.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
It's way too punishing. Again, this is the type of stuff you'd see in a troll map. Anyway, to solve the puzzle, you have to approach the witch slowly and give her a doll to distract her. You pick up a key and leave the room. The next part I should mention is when you reach the island with 10 witches. This is another moment in the level where you can easily die if you're not careful. If you don't have a Molotov, don't even try to fight the witches. You have to try to run past them, but it's risky because they can aggro onto you. They aggroed onto me. Thank God I had a Molotov to save my life, because if I died here, I think I would have lost my mind. I am 20 minutes into this chapter so far, and the map is still throwing do or die situations at me. A custom map should never ever do such a thing, especially a map that is not even a troll map. After getting all the items you need, the mysterious voice opens a door so that you can get a key to finally escape this hellhole. I didn't even talk about this guy much. He's always talking about his sisters and eating your flesh, so I guess he's a cannibal. He likes to taunt you, and at one point, he even says that he knows more about you than you know about yourself.
What?
Who the hell is this guy supposed to be? Satan? He also mentions how there is a traitor in our midst. Naturally, I would assume it's Ryan, the guy who has been talking to us all this time. After escaping through the window, the chapter doesn't even end. It keeps going. You get back in contact with Ryan, and now you have to reach the safe house that is close by. I was sweating during this. Thankfully, the map doesn't throw any more punches at you, though if you are unlucky enough, there is still a chance of a random tank to spawn. You better pray to God that there isn't one. If you die here, you go all the way back to the safe house.
Damn! Is that a punishment or what?
Somehow, I managed to beat the remainder of this chapter on my own. Chapter 3 is an abomination that needed some serious overhauls to make it even come close to being just okay. The only part I liked is the beginning and end, but that's only like 15% of the map. The rest of the chapter is hell itself, and should never have made it to the drawing board. Glove-tastic is better than this whole chapter. Unfortunately, I can't say that chapter 4 is much better. It's definitely not as bad, but just like the last chapter, there is one section that basically ruins the whole thing. After leaving the safe house, Ryan tasks the survivors to get to the helicopter. The first part of this chapter is totally fine, but what comes next is absolutely abysmal. Turns out the helicopter is out of gas, so somehow Ryan manages to send a backup helicopter for rescue. You only need to hold out for 10 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
Well, at least it's not 15 minutes like the old Hunt Down the Freeman ending. But still, 10 minutes is just way too long, man. What if you were to die at any point? You have to start completely over. And this holdout section is very difficult, especially near the end when the amount of common infected being sent is through the roof, along with tanks and special infected too. There just aren't enough gas cans and Molotovs for this, and the bots sure as hell were not made for this either. Doing this solo is just However, my biggest issue isn't even the time it takes, nor is it the difficulty, it's the goddamn cutscenes. For some reason, when a tank spawns, the map feels the need to show you a brief cutscene of it spawning in. Yeah, the cutscene is short, but it completely takes control away from your character and allows common infected to get free hits in. It does this like 3 times during the holdout, and you could easily lose because of that, which is completely unfair. Stuff like this gives me Resident Evil 6 flashbacks, with control constantly being taken away from the player.
What were they thinking?
Everything is wrong with this holdout. It lasts too long, the cutscenes are unbearably intrusive, and the amount of common infected thrown at you makes it feel like you're playing with a light version of Super Hordes. On Expert, the holdout is almost impossible without any add-ons. Yes, the map creator does give you a lot of supplies, but in my opinion, it's not enough for 10 whole minutes of survival. Look, they give you tier 1 shotguns and hunting rifles? Like, is this a joke? If you somehow live through all of that, the helicopter arrives. And now it's down. Ryan at this point gets so frustrated that he almost just gives up on you. And honestly, I don't blame him. These survivors purposely delayed themselves getting to the city, got themselves in a situation with a madman with his sisters, and now the one helicopter that was sent to rescue them was taken down almost immediately. But Ryan has a good heart, so he tells you to head to the train station for rescue.
I don't know how much longer the sissies here can hold out.
Hey, that's not cool. Seriously.
So we're going to the train station. We head down the street, enter this building, and oh, this is just No Mercy. The reuse of level design from official campaigns has snuck its way in once again. Chapter 1 took from Nova Prospect, Chapter 2 took from No Mercy, and now Chapter 4 also takes from No Mercy. I guess the map creator likes No Mercy a lot. Like I said, I don't mind it too much, but when you do it in 3 out of the 4 chapters so far, it takes away from the experience, because it kind of defeats the whole purpose of a custom map. There isn't much to say about the rest of the chapter, but the fact that it goes on for another 7 to 8 minutes is a problem in itself. Think about it, you just got done doing a holdout for 10 minutes that has most likely left you in shambles, and now you're just expected to press on for another 8 minutes. That holdout could have been a chapter in of itself. Seriously, did the map creator not realize just how hard that holdout was? No event happens later on in the level, but there is still a good chance you can die. A tank spawn or a witch, or maybe just an ill-timed horde can wipe you out. The rest of chapter 4 is nothing to write home about. You wander the city until you reach the train station. Finally, we're coming up on the finale of this campaign. Will it continue to disappoint? Well, no, actually.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
Chapter 5 starts us off in the train. The survivors have finally arrived at the quarantine zone. At last, we can feel safe, and we're too late. I swear, this is probably the 4th time the survivors have been too late to something. Everything just seems to go wrong in this campaign, which I honestly like. It helps establish the feeling of hopelessness, and let me tell you, this campaign does not have a happy ending. The next area is a little odd. You'd think this would be where the finale takes place, since there are a lot of mounted guns, but it's actually not. You can get a lot of items exploring around this area, but you're supposed to go over here and go down an elevator. I guess the survivors are just looking for anyone who might have survived. Once we make it to the bottom, we now enter a facility. This part is kind of annoying. You've got to do a fetch quest and look for a janitor's key, and flip a switch to activate another elevator. But this whole area is kind of big and a little confusing. Finding the janitor's key took me a while because it's actually inside of a locker. At the very beginning of the map, there is a locker that you can open for supplies, but I'm pretty sure this never came up again until now. After picking up the key, you bring it to the janitor's door, and now you've got to find the power switch for the elevator. It would be real nice if the switch was highlighted, or if there was more guidance towards it, but nah, there is nothing that guides you to this power switch until you find the voltage sign. After hitting the switch, we head back and take another elevator that goes down even deeper. So far, there hasn't been any signs of survivors. Ryan has been completely silent during this whole section, and it's so nice. This is the first time in the campaign where you can actually just play the game in peace.
And then anybody?
Oh, never mind, he's still alive. He informs you of the situation. Ryan is currently hiding somewhere on the island, which kind of sucks. I wanted to see what this guy looks like. It would have been nice if Ryan actually appeared and helped you out, but that's probably asking too much for a Left 4 Dead 1 custom map. Ryan informs you that this whole place is a breeding ground for the virus, so the only way to contain it is to blow the whole place up, including yourselves and everyone else in the vicinity. In order to do that, we have to overload the core that can be found at the bottom of the elevator. I wonder what's going through the survivors' heads. This campaign started with a plane crash. Imagine fighting for your life, trying to be rescued, only to be too late, too slow, or just too unlucky, and now you're being told that you have to basically commit suicide for the sake of humanity. The survivors owe Ryan for helping them find rescue, but they don't owe him their own lives. In terms of gameplay, the finale itself is actually decent. There are no cutscenes or any difficulty spikes. Wow, it's just like a normal finale. Thank God for that. In fact, the whole chapter so far has been a pleasant surprise. The only annoying part was finding that power switch, but after experiencing chapter 3 and 4, I think this is something I can live with. After surviving long enough, the core overloads and blows up the whole island, killing you, the infected, Ryan, and everyone else who is on the island. The map cuts to black, and you can hear the voice of that guy who spoke to you during chapter 3.
It's me. Everything's under control. They never suspected a thing. I have the cure. It'll be in your hands by the end of the day. I expect my final payment in 1 hour. No, thank you, Mr. President.
Of course the president was involved with the virus. This really is just like Resident Evil. Well, that's Cold Case. As I've been editing this video, I think I changed my mind about chapter 1 being the best level. The best is actually chapter 5, because there were no major problems at all, so at least the campaign ends on a good note. However, chapter 3 and 4 was so abysmal that it really brought this campaign down. Cold Case deserves a 3. If you're insane, you can give it a 4. The intrusive cutscenes, unfair difficulty spikes, reuse of level design from other maps, and the entirety of chapter 3 are the reasons why this is a 3. I'd give the Left 4 Dead 1 version a 2 because that straight up ruins the perfectly normal gameplay for no reason. The only things this map did right was the exploration and the somewhat entertaining story. I appreciated the ambition the map creator had, but the execution was really bad. Unlike Daybreak, where the ambition paid off, I feel like with this map it heavily backfired and pretty much ruined it. If the map creator pulled back a little bit and refined the campaign to be more fun and enjoyable for everyone, it would have been good. Well, actually, there is a map that does exactly that. Cold Case Forsaken offers a way better gameplay experience at the cost of basically no story. If Cold Case was just this, I think people would have liked it, but I guess sometimes things just don't work out. I don't hate this map. Okay, I hate it a little bit because of chapter 3, but besides that, I just hate knowing what this map could have been.